Hello and good afternoon, everybody. First off, I would like to welcome everyone to our live Cloud Lab demo. My name is Lindsay Wynn, and I am the Cybersecurity Sales Manager for Jones & Bartlett Learning. So first and foremost, we are very excited to be able to showcase our Cloud Labs with you today. I want to first just take a few minutes prior to revealing our lab environment to introduce our presenters that will be walking us through our demo of the Cloud Labs. So our main act today and the expert on all things related to our labs is our solutions consultant, Steve Webster. So needless to say, Steve is very familiar with our labs. He has logged many hours on the platform. Today, Steve will be taking us through our immersive lab environment. He'll be outlining key features and benefits to you all throughout the way. In addition to Steve, we also have Andrea DeFranzo, who is our Director of Marketing with us today. Andrea has been very instrumental in putting this lab together for us throughout the lab webinar today. She will also be keeping an eye on the chat to see any questions that may come from the group. So with that being said, please feel free to pass along any questions that may come up as we're just demonstrating this lab set. I'll also mention that at the conclusion of our demo, Andrea will be opening up the floor for additional questions, and at that time, everybody will be unmuted. So now that we got introductions out of the way, I would like to provide some insight into our cloud labs and the environment that we will be taking you through today. So since 2010, Jones & Bartlett Learning has been a proven and industry leader in providing engaging virtual lab solutions to our customers. So that's you and of course your students. Our cloud labs provide fully immersive mock IT infrastructures utilizing live virtual machines and then real software. So with that being said, students are then able to learn, practice, reinforce all of that foundational information security skills that is going to be important and integral to their success in future careers. Unlike simulations, our JBL hands-on virtual labs reproduce complex challenges of the real world, but they're not putting your institution's assets at risk. Our cloud labs coincide also directly with our textbook content. In addition to that, we also provide mapping guides for key cybersecurity frameworks. We're more than happy at a later time to be able to provide that additional mapping to industry standards and certifications. So hopefully that provided a little bit of overview with you guys today in regards to what we're going to be going through. I'm going to go ahead and at this time turn it over to Stephen Webster. He's going to walk us through some of the Cloud Lab demo. And then following at the end, Andrea will come back on and we'll answer any questions that the group might have.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. As she said, my name is Steve Webster, and I'm a solutions consultant here at JBL. And I've been working with the Cloud Labs for quite some time now, and I frequently do demos for our instructors. What I think I want to do here today is jump right in to one of our labs, and what you're looking at right now is our virtual lab platform. It is lab 7 of the fundamentals of information security, and there are 3 pieces to that: the lab guide, which is over on the left, the virtual machine, which is the gray box here on the right hand side, and the control panel across the top. We are delivering, as Lindsay said, we are delivering virtual machines. And by doing that, we're using fully operational software that delivers the software to the students. And there are no, it's not crippled software. It's not emulation software. It is fully functional software that students would use when they get out into the real world. We feel real strongly that we want to deliver exactly that, because those are the true environments that students are going to have to use when they get out into the real world. Everything is fully licensed and fully functional. When we are working with our labs, and I'm going to pop on down to one of the topology that we're working with here, and that's in the left-hand column there. You can see the topology that we've got deployed with this particular lab, and it involves multiple virtual machines, which we then control here from this particular pull-down menu in our in the menu across the top. The big piece that is the big key for us all is the lab report that we automatically provide for the students. As the students work their way through the lab, They perform various tasks, take various screenshots, and do some short answer. And when they do that, the lab guide automatically gets built out for the student. Some features here that are worth noting. We do allow the student to leave the lab and come back. The runtime on most of our labs is about 3 hours. And we do allow you to create what we call a state save and then come back and pick the labs up where you happen to be left off. We do that, of course, because people have to be able to live their lives, work until lunchtime, and then take a break. When we are in the lab guide, we start with an introduction, which is a rather nice, tidy package that sets the scene for the labs, talks about what we're going to be doing, why we're going to be doing it, provides an overview of each section of the labs, and we'll talk about what we've got there. Gives you the learning objectives in the lab and the topology that we're going to be using. And each of those topologies is going to differ lab to lab. These are the tools and the software that we're going to be using in this particular lab, and then the deliverables. The deliverables, as I said earlier, is the lab report that the students will create that gets automatically generated for them that they're going to deliver to the instructor. So let's just kind of dig in a little bit, and we'll show you how these labs work. So in section 1, we are highly prescriptive. We tell the student what to do, how to do it, what to click, what check boxes to fill, and whatnot. We are very, very direct, and we give lots of screenshots and provide all kinds of direction about exactly what the student is going to do. So with part 1, we're going to slide on down here, and we're going to do a step 1. And we're not here to watch me compute, but we're just going to do a couple real quick steps. On the lab view toolbar, select the domain controller, which is up here at the top. Here are the various virtual machines. So we're going to select the domain controller, and then we're going to click the Windows Start button and go to Server Manager. And that gets us started. And we make our way down through the lab. We provide all the information that the student is going to need about where to click and how to make their way on through everything. And as I'll just kind of scroll on through the lab guide for a moment, as we go through, we outline exactly where the student needs to click, what modifications need to be made, what settings need to be made. We've got an edit box. We go to password policy, and we're talking about enforcing password history. And we tell them what to do and how to do that. And here is another screenshot where we're enforcing password history properties. We come to the next piece. I'm going to scroll on down as we make our way through here to step 16. And step 16 is going to be a screen capture. And when this is a screen capture that I've actually already done, and you can tell that because it's green. You can click on the camera and see that screen capture, and we can zoom in on it. And the piece that is super important to us is that we have created a watermark that goes onto every screen capture that we do. We provide tremendous academic integrity because we include the name of the lab, the virtual machine that is being used, a date and timestamp, and the student name. And the student will then take that screenshot, and that gets dropped automatically into the student lab report. When you go scroll on down a little bit further to another screenshot, where what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this one, and you can go here and delete it. And we're going to delete the screenshot because we've decided we've made a mistake. Click on OK, and that task now turns red or salmon. The lab guide is now slid back to 20%. And if we want to reshoot that screen, we simply click on that camera and take the screenshot. It spins for a moment. The lab report has been updated, and the lab guide progress has moved up to 26%. Again, we could click on that camera and see the screen that has the timestamp that we just took just a moment ago. So as the student makes their way on down through the labs, they do the various tasks that we have prescribed for them, clicking in various places, moving from virtual machine to virtual machine, and doing the work that is necessary to implement an antivirus policy or whatever that tasks happen to be. As we move from section 1, which as I said is very prescriptive, one step at a time, we move on down to the applied learning, where we start taking off some of the training wheels. We don't leave the students high and dry, but we start using some language that says, run this or open this, instead of telling them, click here, click here, click here, click there. So the student has leveraged the learning that has occurred in section 1. They then leverage that in section 2 and start moving up the food chain in terms of what tasks that they are going to be doing. So section 2, in part 1, we're going to apply a Windows security baseline. And then we move on here, and there are all the various steps here. So we're going to navigate to various things. We're going to run various tasks. And again, we're just going to move our way on through. We're going to take a screenshot. If we wanted to, we're going to pretend that we actually did the work, click on that camera, take a screenshot, the lab guide moves forward, and now we're at 33%. The third section of our lab is the challenge and analysis. And depending on the lab, some of the language of that is research. Some of that is extraordinarily real world. Another lab that we use has the student writing a technical memo to their boss. So in this particular case, we have the task of using the internet, research accessible use policies. We click on that pencil and enter the text that we're looking for. You can write here and save it. You can also have another opportunity, I'll show you that in a moment, where you could revisit that and make any editorial changes that you see fit. Some other pieces that are notable here about our platform is that you can restart the lab. You can even reset the lab. The student can do this all by their lonesome, which makes it very manageable for instructors. You don't have to get involved in that at all. The student, if they get themselves into trouble, can start all over again, because this is a safe, totally enclosed environment. You don't have to worry about giving them any permissions. You don't have to worry about any of the security stuff leaking out. And the instructors don't have to worry about being a network administrator. All of that stuff is taken care of by us. We simply deliver it to you, the instructors and the students. A few other things. When you're in the lab, we start off with a 3-hour virtual machine reservation time, which can then be extended by another hour. And that you get that time every time you come into the labs. So there's no worry about running out of time. Just leave the lab, start back up again if you've already used up your 4 hours for that particular lab session. We do have technical support, which is available 24/7, tier 1 level. And that is available just by clicking on that tech support tab, and that will launch a support ticket for us. Of course, one of the questions that students also always ask is, how do I know if my system is up to snuff? System Checker is available here. It's also available in an earlier stage of things. We check the browser and bandwidth to make sure that everything is up to snuff. And those are the key pieces here. The lab guide, we can move that around. You can collapse it, change the font. You can even undock it. That gives you the whole virtual machine space for your computing, and that puts the lab guide into another window, which is super for those Chromebooks that are kind of tiny and hard to see. Andrea, are there any questions that have popped up in the chat that perhaps I should address while we are here within the lab environment?
Sure. There have been a couple that have come through. The first is around asking whether the cloud labs require the use of Microsoft Windows.
No, works with Windows, works with Mac. We work better with Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, but we do work with all major browsers and all those other and Windows and Mac. Not a problem.
Thank you. And secondly, someone is asking about the average response time due to transmission delays in the network because they're experiencing some big delays when using MindTap Labs.
Our responsiveness is extraordinarily strong. In fact, I'm going to show you something in a minute when I pop over to another window where I can actually tunnel into another student's lab. As an instructor, I can look at what another student is doing, which is a pretty cool thing for remote support for your students. We've been able to scale up and support all of our students. I think if I'm not mistaken, last month we had 55,000 hours of student time in our labs last month as a guide for our scalability. That might be a good number to throw out for you.
Thank
Anything
you.
else,
And
Andrea?
finally, just elaborating a little bit on the time it takes students on the labs. So for instance, if they were to go into the lab and log off and log back on, do they still get a set amount of time or are they kind of held to a certain time allotment for each lab?
There is no time restriction whatsoever. The allotment is only a matter of virtual machine reservation time. You get 3 hours for every time you launch the labs. So you can work for 3 or 4 hours, log off, have lunch, come back the next day. You're going to get another 3 or 4 hours available to you. So there's no issue there. And we have some very strong auditing tools, which I'll show you in a minute for instructors as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other tech questions about this interface here while we're in it?
Not so far.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect from the lab and kick back on to the lab platform environment. I'm going to keep this is the state save that I referred to earlier, so that this is how I would come back to pick up the labs where I left off. So we're going to create a state save for myself. And I'm going to slide another window down into my platform. And you can see that is being created, that state save is being created. The first thing that's worth noting is that there is a lab report that is automatically generated for the student. So this is the lab report that we're going to click on View Lab Report. This is the lab report that I have been working on for today. It has all of the screen captures. It has here is the screen capture that we just did earlier today. And each one of them is all laid out here in a PDF. Here are the screen captures that I have not done. And here is that answer that I had created around the research that I had done. So here, if we just click on the pencil, we can make any editorial modifications to what we are submitting to our instructor. So if you can imagine that I have actually done with all the labs and I'm completed, I click on the icon in the upper right to download the lab report. That will put the lab report as a PDF, which is password protected, and that is the document that the student would deliver to the instructor. And typically that is done by creating an assignment within your LMS for students to upload their lab report. And then once it's in your LMS, then the instructor can easily grade that. And that's the key deliverable piece that we have. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to pop over here to another piece that is available for instructors. There is a sample lab report. This is the instructor's answer key. And here we provide the lab report, and this is the template, and every lab report looks this way because we compile the lab report for the student. So the student's name, their email address, their progress, when things were generated, and then this is the series of screens that you would expect a student that has created the proper lab report to provide. And all of those screens are here within the sample lab report. And at the end, where we have information that varies by student, we do provide you with the appropriate information as much as we possibly can to direct you to the right answers that you would expect from students. So we provide that for all of the labs. In addition, we also have a lab assessment quiz, which is a 5 or 10 question quiz. We recommend that those be used, that can be downloaded and imported into your LMS. We recommend those be used for student engagement, not for mastery. You wouldn't actually quiz a student on their lab report. The lab report will do that just fine. So a couple of other things here for you. When the student gets here, and this is the launch platform that you would use when you're getting ready to run the labs. The first time the student gets here, they will see the tutorial that we have prepared for them. And this tutorial walks the student through all of the pieces of the lab and how to use it, how to create a state save, how to use the lab guide, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a fairly comprehensive tutorial about how to use our labs. We also run the system checker the first time the student gets there. So that's another opportunity for students to make sure that their software is up to speed. Other instructor tools are pretty comprehensive here in this bar across the top. Now, students, of course, will not see this, but because I am the professor in this course, I'm going to pop over here and I'm going to look here and see that Taylor Sander over here on my computer, over here on my left, Taylor Sander is running that particular lab right now. And you can see where they are, when they started the lab, when they ended the lab, and click on the 3 dots, and we can do any number of things. We can join that lab. We can extend the lab. So we're going to join Taylor Sander in their lab. And now we're going to be able to see all of Taylor's virtual machines. So you can see each of the pieces that Taylor is using right now as our internet comes in here. So if I wanted to see what's going on in domain controller 1, I can view it. I can even take control of the mouse and keyboard, which we're going to do right now. We're going to connect to Taylor over here on my left, going up through the internet. And that will deliver Taylor's lab to me as the instructor. And of course, software being what it is, it's taking a little bit longer to happen. Move some mouse around over here. Quite sure why that is taking so long. So we can then move around, can look at all of the labs, control them, restart them, shut down. We can even control their save state, their state save, and do something there if we are so inclined. So that's a pretty strong piece that we have for being able to do remote office hours. Our other audit tools are the ability to look at your classroom by student. So we can click on a student, and we can see every lab start that they have. So here's the session start, the session end. We can see their progress through the lab because we are automatically generating that lab report. And that's obviously going to differ for every student, but we can see every student's lab start and lab end. I'll just pop over to another student. Let's see what Jordan Larson is up to. And Jordan Larson has been working on 3 of her labs. In addition to the individual students, we can also look at the classroom, and we provide 3 different views of progress of the students in the classroom. We can look at time on task, we can look at lab progress, and completed sections. And that, of course, is going to differ lab to lab. So we're going to pop on down to our implementing an IT security policy lab, the one we've been working on. And under time on task, you can see that we've got 3 different students that are in different levels of time. You can click on that and you can see which student makes up that particular cohort. You can look at time on task, you can look at lab progress. So we've got 2 students that are over here that are done or almost done, and 1 student that's there. So again, you can click on the bar graph and see what students make up that particular cohort. In addition to time on task and lab progress, you can also look at completed sections. Which of those sections have my students looked at and completed? All of that information is also available by clicking on reports, and you can download that information as a spreadsheet. Of course, you can also control what window of time you're looking at, whether you want to look at what students have been doing this week or the whole time or last month, whatever custom window of time that you are interested in. So now would be a good time. Andrea, do we have any other questions that have cropped up?
Yes, a couple have come through.
Absolutely.
So there's a question around the kind of LMS integration that's available with the labs.
A great question. We do LTI integration with Moodle, Canvas, Blackboard, and D2L Brightspace. What we do with that is we would send you a common cartridge, which you would then import into your course shell, and then the students can then access the labs just by clicking and authenticating once, and then they're off to the races.
Great. And then there is another question around, is there any part of the lab that is auto-graded?
No, it's a great question. We get that question a lot. The auto-grading component we've discovered is just not really something that's possible. These students need grading that is far too nuanced, and an auto grade is not going to be a particularly good way of going at all. So we do ask that the instructors spend a little bit of time, and they get to make the decisions about partial credit, full credit, whether they decide that this screen is close enough, or whether the information that's in that technical memo to your boss, that's going to have to be graded by the instructor.
And then finally, there is an attendee who would like some more specifics on each of the labs. So maybe towards the end, we could jump over to the website with the listing of the available labs.
Yeah, we can do that. In fact, that would be a good time now. Let me just slide that into my window. So here are our labs, and you can, if you go to this particular URL, and Andrea, if you could put that in the chat, that would be fabulous. With just by clicking on each one of these, you can see all of the labs that are in that lab set. Most of our lab sets are 10 labs long, unless we happen to have done some extra supplemental labs. So with network security, firewalls, and VPNs, we give you 15 labs. You can then decide which ones you want to use, which ones you don't want to use, and which ones you want to use as extra credit. I think the number of lab sets that we are at right now, I think is at 23 right now. So we have a rather extensive library of our labs. Any other questions, Andrea?
That is all for now.
Terrific. So I think I think the thing to do now is to turn things back over to Lindsay and let her talk about availability and pricing, and to field any other questions about accessibility here.
And I'm sorry,
Okay.
Steve, I have one
Lindsay?
other question.
Surely.
So the labs mostly cover Windows machines, or do we have some that cover Linux as well?
We do have some that cover Linux. We have a couple of them, in fact. We have security strategies and Linux platforms and application, and that one is out now and is going to have a major revision coming in the fall. Let's see, I think there was another Linux piece there as well. That's the one that comes to mind, but we do also have some Linux stuff as well.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Andrew, were those all the questions, or do we still have some outstanding?
I think that's what we have so far. Yep.
Perfect. Well, I hope that provided a glimpse into our Cloud Lab series to everybody. We are going to have more of these webinars as well that we will definitely keep you posted and interested for those that are interested in joining. The purpose of today was really just to give you just a high-level overview of some of these different labs that we've created that coincide with our text content. We'd love to be able to kind of have more individualized one-on-one conversations, as well as even get you access to any of the lab series that we had that we've either walked through today, or that I know there's some other questions with regards to other courses that you teach at your institution. For those of you who are interested in having further conversations and also even scheduling a one-on-one demo with our group, please utilize the link that Andrea has on the screen below. That will get a contact us link up from our JBL website, and we'll definitely get you in touch with the proper individual within our wonderful cybersecurity team here at JBL. But with that being said, I want to personally thank Steve, as well as Andrea, for spending the time with us today, walking us through FunSec, one of our lab series, our ISA lab series here at JBL. And thanks, Andrea, for keeping an eye on all those wonderful questions. We definitely appreciate your time spent with us this afternoon. And please feel free again to utilize that link in the actual screen right now. And then Andrea also has a handout as well as that link that Steve went through that provided a little bit more of an outline with regards to all these different labs.
It looks, Lindsay, it looks like there's some other questions that have flowed on in. So we should definitely get into some of that. So let's see, among the questions that I see here around cost of the labs, our 10 lab sets are typically priced, I believe, at on the pricing on that. Lindsay, do you have all that information?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be definitely a good conversation to have one-on-one with your individual representative as well. There's a lot of different pricing options that we offer for our customers. As Steve also went through earlier, we also have options for customizing some of our lab sets depending on specific needs at your institution for you and your students. So I definitely would want to have kind of a better idea in regards to which labs you're looking at, as well as kind of what that product package looks like.
Let's see, what else do we have? So the students, one of the questions is, do students need to pay for each of the different labs separately? We make the labs available in lab packs. So there's a lab set that covers a particular topic, and those are the labs that are available for that one. We do the question about mixing and matching. We do some customization. You can do 1 from column A and 3 from column B kind of thing. That will work, and you want to talk with your sales rep about that. Any other questions? Looks like any plan to provide Linux labs? under consideration. We shall see where we are working real hard at trying to stay current and kind of threading the needle between updating the labs frequently enough, but not too frequently.
I see a final one around individual support for students as well.
Yes, that is available from that tech support lab, from the tech support link that's both within the lab and from the launch platform. So you can, the student can get access to that. I would caution you to remind your students that you know, a lot of students struggle with trying to figure out whether it's them or it's the lab, and they often will tell us the lab isn't working when what they've done is missed a step or typed a command improperly, and they maintain that things aren't working. That is something that is the reality of computing today. You know, you need to be able to enter the commands properly. The lab is working, it's available. It's a question of a content error by the student. Terrific.
Does that wrap it up, Steve?
I think it does.
All right.
Well, thank you ever so much, everybody. Appreciate all the time that you spent with us this afternoon. If you have any other questions, by all means, reach out to your sales rep, and I will get people individual demos if we need them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for spending your afternoon with us. Thank you, Steve, as well, for walking us through FunSec today. And we hope this was informational. And please definitely reach that contact us link, and we'll definitely get you set up with regards to access or one-on-one conversation and anything else that you might need from there.